All right, gang. I think we're back. I think we're back here. We were live for a second there, and then I think we got booted off, so we're going to try this again. Take two. All right, so if you're just joining us, welcome back. And if you were with us a few minutes ago, welcome back. I hope you came back. My name is Trey Gallaher, and this is Art Stream with Trey Gallaher. And today we're finishing up or continuing to work on a pirate design. And we had sort of started initially with a concept that had been generated from doing a portrait. So I had initially sort of started this concept with a portrait that I had done just sort of messing around with markers one day. And I liked enough of the feel of it that I thought, you know what, I want to get back to knowing what the rest of this guy looks like. So now I am back here experimenting with some body types to go along with this initial concept portrait here. So in looking at this character, last time we met, we had explored a couple of different body types. Excuse me, I got a little bit of something working here. Experimented with a couple different body types, and you're welcome to check out episode 8 to know a little bit more about how we got to this point. But 3 different body types, figuring that one of these two was probably going to be a little bit closer to what I imagined for this character. Now, going beyond body types, now I wanted to experiment a little bit more with costuming. And so now I'm going to proceed to do some silhouette studies as a way to sort of explore shapes in and around the body design and see what I can come up with. I'd actually started a couple already, and I will show you those. Then a couple of pages here. So first I had sort of started off with this one, which had some interesting things going on here, and I learned a little bit about the shapes and things that I liked. And then I had another page here, very similar, but continuing to push on some of these designs. So there were a couple things that I did learn that I liked about these. Mostly what I'm looking for when I'm doing silhouettes is something in the gesture, or perhaps introducing asymmetrical shapes or things that may pop out as a result of experimenting with a marker or some big chunky black marker. Sometimes you discover shapes and find things that you wouldn't have otherwise just invented as you draw, because they're in a way kind of happy accidents, and that's okay. That's a little bit of what the silhouette process is about. It's about discovery and finding something that you could turn or make into something. Anyway, I really like the gesture here. I liked sort of the head position on this one. I really like the way the body looked here with a little bit of asymmetry, sort of a suggestion of maybe having lost a limb, but with sort of a robust stance. I'm not sure that I completely want to lose the limb, but I'm exploring that idea. So after having done those a little bit, I had worked up, from those silhouettes, I had worked up this, which was sort of taking these 2 silhouette studies and translating those into literal line art as a design exploration of these. So I've got 2, but I'd like to do some more. So I'm going to continue to do some more silhouettes and see if I can come up with a couple more similar designs and see before I finally pick one that does the right job. Again, sort of incorporating a little bit of what I had done before in the body type, so I kind of know what I'm after in terms of body type. Now it's sort of a question of, you know, costuming and additional apparel that I might put in and around. So I'm going to do a couple more silhouettes here just to explore a little bit more, because I feel like it's a little early to call the design absolute, or do I feel satisfied enough? And so if you're not satisfied, then you need to continue to do some more silhouettes. Got to do some more studies until you find something that feels right. So I want a little bit more before I'm calling it done. So I'm going to go ahead and do some more silhouette studies here, and just to see what I can come up with. I'm going to keep my my body types sort of nearby to keep me refreshed. And of course I've got my portrait, which continues to give me guidance. So I'm just working on some marker paper here. And I think the key, you know, anytime you're doing marker studies or silhouette studies specifically, the idea is not to control too much, but to let the accidents happen. So you're kind of pushing on some shapes. Many times when you first start, they're a little bit conventional because your brain is sort of trapped in that space where you're like trying to let go so that something happens accidental or with a little bit of rhythm or flow, and sometimes they can be a little bit stiff in the beginning, and that's okay. You kind of get into a groove as you continue to do these. I also find there is sort of a point where the diminishing returns start to happen, and you start to go, well, I've reached some sort of peak. I don't think they're getting better for a while, and so maybe you need to take a break or go do something else for a little bit and come back and have that sort of fresh eyes kind of quality. I don't picture this guy wearing boots. I think that this guy is probably not that formal, at least in this design. He's not a captain. He's a deckhand. I'll just experiment until I find something that feels right. A couple of characteristics, though, about this guy. That hat, for sure, is, I know, something that I want to hold on to. So I definitely want the characteristics that I know to be true. So that means that the head is probably going to be a little more set than the body is. Silhouettes are always kind of tricky in that respect because you are pushing against what your mind knows to be the truth versus the accidental random thing that can happen. So it's a tug of war between making sense out of something and letting it be incidental. It's control versus out of control. I think I need to go a little bit taller with my proportions. Sometimes it can be kind of fun to work backwards, work from the ground up. figure he's definitely got some sort of blousey pantaloons, something wide. Figuring that there's probably going to be a bit of dimension here, so the more 3/4 You know, you see things when you do these. You see possibilities, even if it's just for a second or a glimmer. My proportions are getting better now. I'm feeling a little more comfortable with where I think this guy should be. In terms of making rhyme or reason out of the order of your marks, only in as much as they spark or inspire anything. So you could work from the bottom up, you could work from the top down. Any way you can that's you begin to see something. I think these shouldn't be fast. I mean, these should be fast, I should say. If you're spending too long on your silhouettes, I think you're missing the point. The idea is to find anything you can that might play with shape and allow you some sort of exploration. Sometimes changing the brush. This actually, guy's actually getting a little dry on me here. Grab another one. Oh, great. Okay, 2 down. One more out. See if this one works. Okay, back in business for a little bit. Anyone out there today? If you're just tuning in, welcome. A little bit more elongated. I apologize, I got some crud going here. It's the fall right now, and there is something going around. I think I may have a bit of it. One of the downsides of teaching is I'm around a lot of public. And I frequently get exposed to a lot. I have to say, I kind of like the way that this broad-shouldered thing is working with a little bit of this curvature. One of the things that I really liked about one from this other page, excuse me, my God, was I really like the feeling of a coat. But I can't have the coat be too big because it starts to feel, I don't know, too admiral-like, or the captain. So this guy is not a captain. He is a lieutenant, maybe, but not a captain. So I do like some of these, but in this particular design, I'm going to save these ones for later for something else. But I'm thinking something, the coat can't be too big. So, but if you were to see this guy on the docks, coming off of a ship, he'd probably be wearing something in the cold, from the cold, and so he's going to have some sort of maybe overcoat, unless it's in the warmer climate. But I like the idea that there's sort of layers to what he's wearing. So I think what I kind of learned from last time was that I didn't want the coat lapels to be up or too high, because he just looks a little too, well, too ranking officer kind of quality. And so I'm Just doesn't feel right. He might have a satchel though. Maybe coming off of a ship, he might have some belongings. Something kind of hanging down. I don't know yet. I don't think I've quite hit it. I don't know how fun these are to watch after you do a lot of them, but this is really where it's at. This is really where you're going to find something. The magic could be just around the corner. So it is worth the exploration and taking your time and settling in and enjoying this process, because it truly is where the next big discovery could be right around the corner. Even though they seem a little repetitive, it's the subtleties that we're looking for here. Like just this one right here. I kind of learned a little something about this stance. I like this. Sense of a pack. I think I want to explore the feeling of a pack a little bit more. So I'm going to put these ones aside. Keep trucking here. Lay down a couple more lines. I suppose some people I've seen, like to do silhouettes where they're not working off of a baseline. And maybe for something kind of organic, really rough looking, maybe perspective, it doesn't matter, or scale doesn't matter, but I'm working with a figure here. And so keeping scale figure to figure with them all being the same size, you can tell the differences between them a little bit more than if you're just randomly drawing silhouettes at different sizes and different locations. If they're next to each other, you can compare visually a little bit more. So let's see. Let's keep working here. See if I can come up with a few more. It's probably a little bigger than I need it to be. Come up a little higher. Kind of like that one. You could be one brush stroke away from something really inspirational. You can almost turn something out of anything. You can almost get anything out of something. Whichever is the better way to say that, but it's just the power of how much your mind can be flexible and wants to play. I think this process, for me, I enjoy this process because it's exciting. It might seem repetitive or redundant, but for me to know that something could happen in a sudden stroke of your brush or your pen, and suddenly you're off in a new direction. I mean, it's like, it's limitless what could happen. And I love that idea. I remember when I was younger and I was in my parents' bathroom and you're in the bathroom. I remember sitting on the proverbial throne, staring at the floor of my parents' tiling. We had like a linoleum floor, not tiling, I guess it was linoleum. And it had like a pattern to it, and it had a funky pattern to it. And I remember staring at those patterns and seeing things that would come out to me, hours and hours, sitting there over my life staring at that floor and seeing shapes and things that would come out of texture or markings on the floor or part of the pattern of the floor or anything. I mean, it's like looking at clouds on a clear day, or on a cloudy, not a cloudy day, but like a partly cloudy day, where you're seeing those beautiful clouds in the sky, and they make shapes and you find stuff. It's like you see shapes in those clouds all over, all kinds of things. One person sees this, another person sees that, and I think to some degree that's exactly what is happening here. Same thing. You are seeing things that your brain wants to make sense out of. So I got into a little bit of new territory here on these last couple ones. I started seeing a few interesting things that I liked here. A little bit of this interesting stance, the arm up, that pantaloon shape there. I kind of like that, so I'm going to push those a little bit more here. I'm also finding that how I'm using the tool is changing slightly. In the beginning, I might have worked wider with a fatter sort of nib, looser. But as I'm finding things that I like that are working, switching to the edge and with a little bit more like a tip, a little closer to maybe typical drawing like with a pencil, is starting to happen. And that might mean because I have a certain shape I can create by working that way. Maybe I'm ready to actually start sketching. Or maybe it just gives me a shape to start to play with. I don't know. It could be all of them. Other sort of important thing to remember too is it can be very helpful to switch drawing tools. So if you're getting kind of stuck with one and not getting enough of what you want, maybe it's worth changing the tool. In this case, I'm using Copics, and I've got a brush tip on the other side, so maybe I could try a little bit of drawing with the brush tip rather than the chisel tip. Maybe that'll give me a little bit more to I like that. I think maybe I'll try before I finish up here using maybe a calligraphy brush. Sometimes these have a sort of spontaneous quality to them. A little bit more of a dry brush texture around the edges, that might do something. That's kind of interesting. like this kind of swanky stance here. If you're just joining us, welcome. And this is Art Stream with Trey Gallaher. If you're new to the stream, usually Sunday nights is when I'm on, kind of later. In addition to being an artist, illustrator, concept artist, I am also a dad. So after kid goes to bed is many times the only time I can get a chance to stream. So Sunday nights seems to be my pattern. But today I managed to squeak out a little time to stream, so welcome if you're new to the stream. Okay, so that's 2 more pages. So I've been doing a few now, and I think it might be time to do some more sketching. I'm just going to fill in a little bit of the darks here. To see if there's anything else I can close up or work with here. All right. Give me 1 second here. So in a few places here, I'm going back in with a little bit of whiteout. If I see something that just doesn't quite fit or make sense, I can fix the shapes a little bit, but I would caution against spending too much time with the whiteout on silhouette studies, because really these things went down so fast with not much control that you could be sitting here finessing and polishing a shape that you're not even going to really spend any time on or decide to go any further with. So I don't think it's worth doing that a bunch. But if you see one that you're thinking about and you're like, well, if it just had this little less tone in this area, or this little edge were fixed, I could almost see it. Like this one. This would be a good example. So I kind of like this one in some ways, but like this does not make any sense. So does it help? Can I begin to see something if I just take that part out? And what do I learn from that? Again, this push-pull back and forth, you could go all day. And at some point, I think you just have to pick something and go with it. A lot of possibilities. I like this one a lot. This is not really what I would have guessed, but I like this. There's something about that one I kind of like. I think I'm looking for ones that have a certain attitude or a certain gesture that comes out that I feel is there. I kind of like this one. I don't know, these don't quite feel like the right thing here. This one's got some possibilities, maybe. What this is, what this thing is. Is it something sticking out of his leg? Not sure. But I like the looks of this one here. This may have some possibilities too. I do like that one. So maybe I'll start to make a couple of marks. I kind of like that one. I kind of like that one. I like that one. Let me check this other page now. I kind of liked this one. I like this one a lot too. This I like a lot. I like this, but I don't know that I'm seeing pirate. I don't know if it's the shape of the head just got too out there. Maybe I could pull it back. I like the idea that maybe he's standing with a satchel. A little bit of swagger, a little bit of bend to that body. Yeah, this one's not bad either, actually. I like the idea that maybe he's leaning on this cane a little bit. No. I don't know. Different kind of attitude. I like this, but not for what I'm after here. Maybe. Kind of a heavier set guy. Not my guy, but maybe an interesting character. Again, not having started with the portrait here, you know, for those of you joining late. So this is sort of where I started. So I'm kind of thinking, like, what would this guy look like if he were traveling and you saw him on the docks and he were kind of mysterious looking, what he might look like. It's interesting here, he's not really wearing a jacket per se, but I think a seafaring man hanging out on the docks is probably going to have a coat of some sort. You know, storms that they go out in, they're going to need to be kept warm. Of course, they were in the tropics. If they were in that part of the world, if they were in the tropical setting, then I suppose the coat might not be necessary, but I don't think all pirates were just in the quote-unquote Caribbean. So, who knows? But I think I'm going to pick something here and maybe work on it. So I definitely like this one. I think I'll work that design. I don't know if he's disabled or not. Again, I like some of these, but I don't know if I like them for for this guy. I think this guy's tougher than that. He wouldn't be at a disadvantage of having a bad leg. I think he's going to be strong, athletic. So this one I think definitely has some possibilities. And maybe this one. All right. Well, that gives me something to start with. So I think the first one I'm going to start off with is probably this one. So I'm going to go ahead and trace. Try that one. Maybe on this page. I'll try this other one adjacent to them. I think the truth is, as concept art, you probably would never decide on one. Purely concept art, working for a client, the client's going to pick the one that makes the most sense to them. So you have to give options. So working up several designs is always better to give your client a little bit more options to choose from. They're paying you to explore. So working up lots of choices for them to set the direction, their choice. You're the inventor, but they're the funder and the chooser. So it's up to you to find the options that they have and let them make some decisions. If you're doing your own designs, though, obviously you're your own boss. You could stop any old time you want. I think I need to see at least 4 or 5 design possibilities before I can really make a decision. Even for myself, I want to know that I've explored it enough. Now I'm only putting this, retracing this again, so that as I work up a rough, I have a direct reference to work from, versus always having to go back to another page. I also have a chance to, I suppose, smoothen out and refine the silhouette just a little bit as it translates down here. Just working in like a Prismacolor because it's a little bit darker. While still kind of resembling graphite. I like to draw in 2H pencil when I'm literally doing roughs, really light sketching. And then I go back over the top with something a little bit darker, maybe an HB. In design work, I don't generally go much more than HB. I like to stay in the harder realm. But sometimes observational drawing or more expressive mark making, I'll go into softer graphite. But design has this element of control and cleanliness, I think, that goes along with it. So for me, I don't like working with really soft materials. This guy feels a little bit more like a traveler here, like he's carrying something. I kind of like that quality. So I'm just darkening this in a little bit, and then I'll try to work up a rough. All right. Who are these two guys? How are they the same? How are they different? All right. So transferred those silhouettes down, and now I'm going to try to do a little bit of a sketch to see what I can do to make some sense, practical sense, out of these abstract shapes. All right, keeping in mind body type somewhere between these two, and keeping in mind again our inspiration and head steady. Let's see what we can get into here. I'm going to start with a little bit of a ground. All right, so I'm going to start off here on the left. All right, so now I'm making practical sense out of some of these shapes. I have a good sense of the proportions, some of the things that I liked about the silhouette, kind of working it out. Also paying attention to how some of those proportions would play into anatomy. But noticing the little details and maybe paying attention to how that would fit with anatomy. I'm picturing him definitely looking sort of in this direction. Kind of, I see the head down a little bit, like he's almost hiding his face a little bit, which for a pirate you can imagine is probably the case when they're in port. These are wanted guys, so they probably would hide a bit. Maybe he's got something under his coat, so I don't know. I'm picturing if he's wearing a coat here. It's almost like he's reaching for something underneath. I don't know if he's wearing stockings or he's bare-legged. I'm guessing if it's cold enough to wear a jacket, he's probably gonna be wearing, I don't know, long underwear, tighter fitting, maybe multi-thermals, some sort of thermal layer. He's not gonna be bare-legged. Makes no sense. Maybe his coat comes a little bit longer. Maybe he managed to lift this off of a captain or an admiral. Somebody that was killed in a duel. Or maybe he just stole it. But the feeling here is that this jacket doesn't fit him really well. And probably the jacket doesn't go very well with whatever else he's wearing. These are things that are coming to mind here. Just making a story or a backstory or something that sort of explains some of this. I think maybe the coat comes down here. His arm is sort of down to the side. Maybe he's got some sense of like a weapon that he's got hiding under a belt. I figure that his waist is probably someplace about in here. He's got this sort of may have to come out a little wider on the shoulder here. So maybe he's got this coat over his shoulder and his hand is reaching inside for a gun. Is he wearing a bag there? Yeah. Maybe his elbow. So here's he's kind of holding his bag. Alright. I think I'm narrowing this one down at least. Picturing a hand. He's holding his bag. He's got this kind of coat. Probably taken off the body of a dead guy. He's got his stuff with him. He's looking for his next ship out. The only thing I dislike, I guess, about this one is that it's hiding a lot of his body. It might be that this hat is a little too big, too. Maybe he needs to have a little bit longer pants. Okay, I'm going to set this one down for a second. And maybe try this other one over here. Again, one thing I'm really seeing that I like is that face down is sort of like a guy in hiding. He's got a bit of a pack. Again, I'm working here now. Okay, again, maybe the idea that he's got a pack. He's carrying a couple objects. Not making a lot of detail here. I'm just trying to make sense out of the proportions and the shapes. Where would they have to be physically, anatomically? And at the same time, leaving myself little indicators. So if a guy is this tall, he's probably going to have a waist somewhere in here. Probably going to have some sort of belt there. Big dude, strong guy. Maybe he's got a cutlass or something over here. Again, I'm kind of making sense out of a few of these things. He's got a bag of some sort, probably over that shoulder. He's probably got a bag over this shoulder. Pigtail. All right. Could do a little bit of more negative space, cutting out some of these shapes, trying to make a little more sense out of them. Again. Maybe a little more definition here on the shoes. I'm going to raise that waist line a little. I think I'm almost there here. like the idea of maybe he's got, you know, protection. Okay. Well, made some sense out of these guys and did a little bit of discovery today, a little bit of silhouette play, and got a couple of designs rolling now. So I think next step, when we see you next, and maybe Sunday night, I hope, that we'll be able to maybe take what are now basically 4 different designs here and seeing if any of them is the one we're going to settle with. Maybe I'll do a few more for more choices. I mean, they all can be great. They all have possibilities. It's just a question of choosing the one that has the right attitude for as far as you've explored up to this point. So hopefully there's enough here that if it's not one of these, it might be a culmination of a couple of these put together. There's definitely things about each of these which I like. Things that are strong about each. I like the massiveness is definitely coming through. You know, going back to body type over here, I think that's definitely coming through appropriately. I like the kind of mystery and the head being in the downward position. Not too big on crossing the arms, but I do like the attitude that presents. There's a sense of not balanced here, so this one would need a little bit more balance. But I am definitely liking this one. I am definitely liking this one. This has some possibilities, but might be hiding a bit too much, so I like this as a possibility backup. Maybe this is what this guy would wear if he had a coat. But I definitely think there's some commonality here, so next time we'll start working on a tight and finalizing the design. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. Again, this has been Art Stream with Trey Gallaher, and you can find me at treygallaher.com, and that's TreyGallaher.com. You can find me at Art by Trey Gallaher on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram at Trey Gallaher, and Twitter as well. So if you're out there on the social media, I'm out there. So thanks for joining. I hope I see you next time, maybe in a couple days, and we'll start working up a final design on this. In the meantime, stay inspired, keep working, follow your passion, follow your heart, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.